Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here, talented photographer, Krishnil Shankar. How are you, buddy?
Thank you, man. How are you? I'm doing good.
I'm doing well, man. Just same old. It's amazing that we were able to catch up and to give you guys some background. Krishnil and I used to work at a clothing store together, and we kind of had a lot
Years
of fun
ago.
experiences there years ago. Yeah, years ago.
Years
And
ago.
we were just actually before the podcast laughing about it because Krishna Krishna knows how I was at that store. He knows I wasn't as passionate being as I was on being on a film set, and
Mhm.
just hiding out in the bathroom in the stock room telling customers, yeah, I'll check the back. Meanwhile, we have it all over the floor.
And you just usually time with it too. Nowhere to be seen for at least a good 30 minutes.
Yeah, and Krishna was, at first he was concerned because he didn't know who I was, and then he started to realize like this guy's mind is somewhere else. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
hmm
And that's what I loved about you, man, is that you know who I was. You
hmm
respected me, and you knew it wasn't like it's because I was lazy about the job. It was just like I said, my mind was somewhere else. I was always trying to think creatively and
hmm
just trying to figure out how to way out. And I guess things
You know, I
just
think anybody who works retail doesn't really want to even be there anyway. So
exactly,
it's
yeah,
more so like,
exactly,
we're just there to, as a stepping stone. We're just there to build
of
ourselves
course.
and, have time for other things. And for you, it was being on set and writing and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I got it.
I think it was, and that's what we're going to talk about more in this discussion. I think it was more about the idea of just scratching that itch, the creative itch
hmm
of, knowing that you're doing everything you can, everything possible to pursue that dream. And again, not a lot of people are fortunate to, be able to pursue that passion because of whatever reason, financial. But I can tell you, even if you just need to balance your schedule, you need to balance your life, and you need to like if you really want to pursue something creative or the arts or something just that makes you happy at its
hmm
basic. I think you need to make time for that, and that's something that I wasn't doing when we were working together.
hmm
That's why probably you saw me not the most energetic, the most motivated. Is when I went home, I was just exhausted from the day that I just went back to it, and it was like this ongoing, mundane routine, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it can get to you, man. I mean, like, even for me, like right now, when we were in lockdown, I was going on like trails and hikes, maybe 2 to 3 times a week.
Hmm.
Just taking pictures,
Yeah,
posting at least 2 to 3 times a week. But now that work has started up again, it's almost like it sucks the energy out of you. You know what I mean? It's like your days off, you just want to stay in and you want to relax. With photography, I have to travel quite a bit just to
of
go to
course.
like new places and stuff like that. But with work, it does take a toll on you, man. It can get pretty daunting, I would say, like just getting out, especially when you're kind of lazy like me. But
No,
yeah.
I think yeah, the term lazy is, quite interesting because I follow Gary Vee a lot, and he says you're not
hmm
lazy, you're just not motivated what you're doing. But I
hmm
think
hmm
what you're trying to get at is, and I can relate so much when you have those days off. It's not that you don't
hmm
want to do your passion. It's just you have that finally have that day off. And anyone
hmm
who's worked retail, especially like where we used to work, the Von Mills,
Yeah.
it's just like excruciating, like the hours and the demand, the consistency, and it's nonstop. There's not like a slow
Yeah.
period.
No.
So when you have that day off, you want to collect your thoughts, right?
hmm
And
hmm
I guess that's what they mean by the grind, the hustle, is you got to just stick it out. There are days when I'm just exhausted, but I think they have this obsessive compulsion to just, make things right. Like just before this
hmm
podcast, I figured out one of my playlists isn't appearing on my YouTube channel, and that's very
hmm
important. It's the clips of the podcast. So I'm like,
Yeah.
why is technology, like, technology just decides to not work some days.
hmm
But yeah, man, it's something that we just gotta keep at it, and we'll find that energy, again, and we'll
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's just part of the journey. That's what I kind of
hmm
realize. As long as we're
hmm
like realizing, like for yourself, like seeing the progress as a photographer, I think that'll motivate you to, not feel so bad when you have a bad day.
hmm
So, but
Yeah.
anyway, since I've known you, like I said before, I've never knew you would pursue a passion in photography. It was something I never remember you even discussing with me, at the very least showing interest. That's probably
hmm
on my fault because I was in the bathroom all the time, probably in the stock room. Like Christian was probably
Totally not.
he was trying to voice
Totally
that he was trying to voice that passion, like, Daniel, I wanted to tell you about. Nah, I gotta go. I see customers.
Just never there.
Yeah, right. But over the course of the pandemic, I've seen your growth and I've seen your potential in the medium of photography. And I wanted to know, were you always passionate about photography?
First of all, thank you. That actually like means a lot to me. And no, I wasn't always, passionate about photography. I was passionate about art. As a kid, I used to love sketching. I used to draw these Dragon Ball Z characters, Goku, Trunks, Vegeta.
Right.
And I was really good at it. But somewhere along growing up, I kind of lost that skill, that passion for it. And then I went into music, kind of. Like I never really did music in school, but I did do it at home. So like I could play the guitar, the drums. I could do, trombone, alto sax, and tenor sax. Somewhere along the way, that kind of got lost as well. Then I picked up martial arts, and this was around the time where we worked at Levi's. That's when I first started.
Yep.
And, went through the motions with that. And because of COVID, that kind of shut down, and it kind of, left a hole in my life, something. Right. It was like one of my outlets, something that I really enjoyed doing. And then it just wasn't there anymore because of COVID. So when the first quarantine hit, I went through the works, man. I went, something to just fill that void, something to fill the time. So I went with, reading a lot, which I still do. I have like a huge stack of books behind me.
Nice.
You can't see it, but
very important. Yeah.
I do read a lot. And then I tried doing short stories. I wanted to do a short story. I had this idea jumbling around my head. But it never really took off because I feel like I couldn't really paint the picture that was in my head onto the page. But it's still there.
Like articulate yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, articulate the vision. Yeah, very hard, very challenging for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is very challenging. And then on an impulse, and this was like pure luck. I saw Peter McKinnon video online.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
And it's him going to Banff, Alberta. And just the vibe of it, him and his group of friends just going to the mountains and taking beautiful pictures, and that inspired me. I'm like, I want to do that. I'm an outdoors person, you know what I mean? And doing photography and going out, that going hand in hand, I would love that. So I researched a bit of cameras, what I really want and what I'm not looking for, and and then literally the next day on an impulse, I went out to the source because I checked for the camera and everywhere was sold out. The source had one more left. So
what was this camera, by the way?
So I have it here with me. It's a Canon EOS Rebel SL2. It's more of a beginner camera.
Yeah.
But it works if it does the trick. If you're taking good pictures, you don't really need a $4,000 camera all the time.
No. My biggest thing I always tell people, the people I have on this podcast, my colleagues, is as long as you're putting stuff out there, so many people get so caught up in the right shot and whatever, and it's like you'll learn as you go. Like if you're really passionate, like I'm telling you, in a year's time, you're gonna get probably even a better camera, or you'll get some sort of better editing. Like you'll just naturally grow because I know that you're passionate about the craft. And that camera that you just showed me now, like to give you an idea, I'm a bit older than you. I got my camera, the T5i Rebel. It's a Canon as well. That was my first like film camera. When I was about 20, 21. And now that I'm 26, I invested in a year or two ago in A7 III Sony.
Nice.
And I love this camera. It's beautiful. But that was a natural investment for me. Like even when I got the camera, it's not like I knew what the hell I was doing. I'm still learning more about it. But to invest, into a red camera, for instance, because that's like an industry standard. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful, like the way they shoot. But again, you got to take it in stride. You can't drop like thousands of dollars just to say, oh, I have a red camera. It's like, do you have the projects that can support it? Do you have the demand? Do you have, the expertise? Do you have the stories that need to be told on that camera, right? The funding.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I definitely love your story where you were explaining about, the camera and, and I wanted to even learn more later on about like the
Hmm.
landscapes and the shots.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask is, with the pandemic, would you say it encouraged you to pursue your passion because it allowed everyone to slow down?
Yes. Without the pandemic, I would not have given photography a chance.
Hmm.
I mean, on my personal page, whenever I took pictures of myself, they were always kind of moody shots. Like I'm not
Yeah.
smiling much, it's,
Cinematic. I
yeah,
like to
it's
say
very,
cinematic.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
cinematic.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so, I had kind of a knack for it.
Hmm.
And someone actually pointed it out to me. They're like, you don't like smiling a lot in your pictures, huh? I'm like, I mean, I like smiling. It's just in my pictures, I don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that kind of, put things into perspective. If even after I saw the Peter McKinnon videos, because some of his shots are very cinematic, they're very moody. Um, so that's what kind of inspired me to do that. But without the pandemic, no, I would
Yeah.
not have given it a chance. So I'm glad, in a way, and I think that speaks to a lot of people because I think a lot of people kind of realized who they were and kind of grew into a newer version of themselves because of the pandemic. I know a lot of
Right.
people who, you know, went into the artistic side of things
Yeah.
because of the pandemic, because there's like really nothing else you can do during a lockdown, right? So.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's important to, my biggest thing was building a foundation now because
Hmm.
inevitably things will go back to normal.
Hmm.
As we see now, whether we like it or not, impending lockdowns, like people are just frustrated. And I think
Hmm.
it's so important that you build as much as you can, or you at least discover new talents, really look inward and reflect on what matters most to you. And that's something that I'm a huge advocate about. And that's one of the lessons I've learned in the pandemic. It's so important to be comfortable with who you are and,
Hmm.
you know, just accept what you can achieve, look forward to your potential.
Hmm.
So I think that's very exciting. And I've seen, that's the thing, right? Like when I see how you post pictures of yourself, I'll be honest, I had no idea there was some sort of like interest in photography. I knew there
Hmm.
was an aesthetic. I
Hmm.
just thought you were doing it for your page. Like, you want it to be seen in a certain way. Right. So I
Hmm.
was like, oh, that's cool. Right. And it became kind of your thing. And then when you kind of posted, you started this new account on Instagram and you started, you followed me and you were posting these landscape shots. I was like, wow, this is someone that is actually into photography, and good for him. He's discovering a
Hmm.
new passion. And I'm also a big advocate about mental health. And I talk about it
Yes.
a lot in my videos
Hmm.
and my vlogs and things like that. And I really
Hmm.
believe that, what you did too, helped you during the pandemic regarding your mental health. Would you
A
say?
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. I think it may have been one of the things that kind of has saved me a couple times because, like,
Nice.
in a lockdown in a pandemic, there can be some really, really dark moments. Because, as you said, it's, we look inwards, we reflect a lot, right?
Of course.
And a lot of that reflection isn't always, good reflection. You're not always nice to yourself. You're criticizing yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, when I was caught in those dark moments, photography was there because I could literally go out and for a couple hours, it's just peaceful. You know what I mean? It's like I'm in my own little bubble, my own little world. I'm in my zone. Um, so it was a good getaway. And
Yeah.
that's what kind of drove me to, start posting more, to start photographing more and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. It worked out for you that way because
Hmm.
again, we know, as much as we know people that you were saying pursued their artistic interests, there was probably just as many people that suffered in their own way, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
they live off of, like, I know a lot of people my age, like they live off of, going to a bar or going to travel,
Mm-hmm.
and their Instagram is basically like stagnant. Like you see a post from like
Exactly. There's just
2019,
nothing. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying is the pandemic, just kind of showed everyone's true colors, like showed who could really survive, like when things go dire, who
Hmm.
really is in touch with themselves. Because before that, right, everything was superficial, everything was on a vanity basis. And
Yeah.
now you kind of start to see like the authenticity, start to see like, because when someone posts, like let's say they're traveling, it's like the elephant in the room, like how are you able to even go on vacation? And if you are, it's like, don't come
Why?
and talk to
Yeah, yeah.
but also
Why?
don't come and talk to me because I don't want to be infected, right? Like
Mhm,
it's just not seen the same way as when things were normal before, right?
mhm.
People would like envy it, or just FOMO and
Yeah,
things
and
like
it's
that.
more scrutinized now. Like, why are you traveling, man? Just
Yeah,
stay home. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, speaking of social media, it's a very polarizing piece of technology. Some hate
mm,
it because they feel it's responsible for people's anxieties and depressions and constant comparisons, as I was mentioning before about the traveling and bar hopping and things like that. But
yeah.
while others like yourself, seem to take advantage of these platforms by producing more of their own work
Hmm.
than consuming others. But how do you deal with the pressures of social media, especially with this new account that you've created with photography?
Well, I take it day by day, man.
Nice.
It's hard to sorry, it's easy to fall victim to what social media is. Even myself, like I fall constantly to, comparisons with other artists.
Of course.
But I try to flip it, you know what I mean? I try to flip it and take inspiration rather than beat myself up for it.
Exactly.
Um, One of the things that really humbles me and that shows how far that I've come is when I scroll all the way down to the bottom of my feed and I see what I used to post, and I'm like, God, I posted that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not something that I'll delete because it's a constant reminder whenever I want to go back and look at it. And then when I come back up and the shots are much nicer, that kind of shows my growth to me. But as far as the pressures of social media goes, it's also easy to fall victim to Instagram is, because you start posting in a certain way, you start seeing what kind of post does more numbers than other posts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start posting things that fit your Instagram algorithm, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those posts are making you happy.
Yeah.
So back in February, like last month, I took about a week off, and that was because, and I even posted it on my social media. Hey, I'm taking a week off. I'm just not feeling
Oh
as
wow.
motivated.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and ever since I started this, I've made a lot of great friends who are also photographers that I don't even know from, like, across the world. And a lot of them reached out. Hey, hey, I hope you're doing okay. If you need anything, just reach out. Right? And that was nice because it shows that
Hmm.
there is a community here. You know what I mean? And not
Of course.
everybody in
In it
competition with one
in it for
another.
the likes and the comments and the
Yeah,
the attention.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I took a week off because I realized I was posting things that weren't necessarily motivating me and weren't necessarily making me happy. And, a lot of other stuff going on in my personal life.
Of
But
course.
after that week finished, and I started posting and taking photographs of what I really like, and I even tried new things. I instead of landscapes, I went downtown with Chris once, and
Yep.
we took some city shots and stuff like that, and some of them did really good numbers too, which is
For
exciting
sure.
to see. It's always
Yeah.
exciting to see.
Yep.
Um, but after a little bit, I'm like, I miss the nature, I miss the landscape. That's my
Yeah.
element. That's where I feel at home, and I'm kind of going back to that. But yeah, very easy to be
So
unmotivated because of social media as
of
well.
course. So what were the pictures? You mentioned a lot about you were posting things that just weren't in align with your brand or who you were as a person.
Hmm.
If I may ask, like what kind of pictures were you posting? Is it the way you were editing them or?
It was the way I was editing them, and it had a lot to do with the season too, I think.
Mm,
So because there was a lot of snow,
mm,
the especially with nature shots, like when you're in the spring, summer, and fall time, everything is so vibrant. All the colors are just
yeah, for
popping out
sure.
at you.
There's
You know what I
variety.
mean?
Yeah, there's a variety of
Yeah.
colors too. Yeah,
And with the winter time, because of all the snow, it's very much grayed out. Like the greens and the trees are gone. You know what I mean? It's more of a gray. So I was constantly looking for areas that had a little bit of pop to them, like a little bit of color. So I had this one lighthouse pick that I went to. I believe I went to Innisville for, a little north of Innisville at a nearby beach.
nice.
And I took a picture of a lighthouse because the lighthouse at the top was red, and it was during a snowstorm too. And amongst all the snow and amongst all the white, there was that red that was popping, right? And
Hmm.
I liked it, but I didn't love it. Even when I posted it, I got a lot of good reactions to it. But it wasn't, and it did numbers too, but it wasn't something that I was really happy about. You know what I mean? I missed that kind of the fall color and, something that kind of stands out. So, and then I photographed more lighthouses. I did an Instagram reel, um, but I just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm kind of going back to my roots. I'm trying to go on trails and stuff like that. I've seen a couple of things that have inspired me, and with the winter season just closing off, a lot of places are opening up again. Like I have like on my Google Maps, I have about 60 locations that I want to travel to this summer within
Nice.
Ontario.
Nice.
So like I'm always planning, I'm always looking at places that I can go. Like one of the big ones I've always wanted to do the Bruce Peninsula. So
Oh,
ever
wow.
since I started photography, that was one of the places. My schedule didn't work out that way. It is a far drive, about like 3 to 4 hours, I believe.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
I'm doing it this year because like that's at the top of my list.
That's great,
But
man.
yeah, and it's also like another thing that really unmotivated me was just the settings, even for landscape shots. You know what I mean? At the beginning of photography, I would take a lot of like it was like trees in the background or in the sides, and then just a path.
Like very
Uh,
symmetrical.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
taking pictures of that. But when you constantly do something like that, you
Hmm.
get tired of it, right? Even
Of
though you
course.
love it, you'll get tired of it because you've
Yeah.
posted so much of that, and there's only so much you can do. Um, so I had to move away from that as well, only because I can get stuck in that kind of mentality. I need to grow. I need to do other things. So setting played a huge part as well. And it gets to a point where you're just looking for something different to do, something different, something that
Yeah.
someone else hasn't done before, which is hard to do because photography has been around for such a long time that almost all the locations, almost everything is already done. But you just have to find your own twist to it. You have to add in your own
Yeah.
personality, your own editing to it,
Hmm.
you know. And I have struggled with editing before. When I first started, I really moved that saturation slider all the way up so there was more color that popped, move the shadows down, move the highlights down.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of playing around with it. With the winter months, I realized that with the snow on the ground, I wanted it to kind of glow a little bit
Yeah.
more definition. So I would put that contrast up and clarity up, and then
The whites.
add
Yeah.
in add in the whites. Yeah, instead of
Yeah.
dragging
Yeah.
down the white highlights, I kind of put it up. So
Hmm.
it gave me a chance to kind of play around with those rather than just putting it all the way down. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Feel it out instead of it always being a
Exactly.
standard like preset. Like that's a big thing for me
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
I think on Instagram, like especially it's become oversaturated where you have accounts, even photography accounts, where it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it looks great, it looks polished, but because it's so like you were saying, it's just a constant preset. Like
Mhm.
everything is
Mhm.
done a certain way. There's no flair to it. There's like no humanity. So you can kind of instantly say like this is just like typical. Like those
Yeah.
typical
Yeah.
Instagram pages,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you see it all the time. And again, they're like, wow, you want to replicate them. And a big thing for me, 94 collection, this clothing line that I started, that
Mhm.
helps me dabble into like photography. And the photos that I posted so far are just simply on an iPhone,
Mhm.
because we just, based on the circumstances, we just kind of jumped out of the car and just were inspired and took shots. I didn't have my camera with me,
Mhm.
but what I was explaining is that, yeah, the preset should be applied because of that setting. But as soon as you
Mhm.
take yourself out of a different setting, you have to play around with it and you have to like allow the editing to speak for itself.
Mhm.
Because when I went downtown and I took more shots in Graffiti Alley, Queen Street West,
Oh,
like
those are
I
nice,
can't.
by the way. I really like
Oh,
those. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, I
so
haven't, I
good.
haven't really, I haven't really posted like
The
anything yet, like
behind the
edited,
scenes look
but the
pretty
behind
cool.
the scenes, yeah,
Yeah.
like see, as a photographer, you can kind of
Mhm.
sense like how they're going to turn out. But I still have to edit them. And what I'm saying is like I can't use the presets that I've used in the parking garage. you know, because I
It
feel
just
like
wouldn't
it would
work.
just, yeah. And
Yeah.
you also, and that's just not true. It's an art, right? Photography. You have to feel it out. Like when I make a film, right? Is there a preset in editing where every film you just pump it in and at 5 minutes you get it? No, you have to see
Yeah.
where the music fits. Like some shots maybe don't require any audio. And that's what kind of like my attitude has been with photography. I'm nowhere near like professional or expert in that because I don't, um, kind of like I'm not as maybe as passionate, I would say, maybe as someone like yourself, or I don't see like I'm primarily like into film,
Film. Yeah.
but I do have a respect for it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know how important it is. If you understand photography, you understand cinematography, right? Which is what I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
do. And then you understand directing and overall telling a story. It's all telling a story at the end of the day. That's why I think why I love the medium so much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at your photos, it tells a story. And that's why I love that it captures nature,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a different story. You know, you're not
Yeah.
doing, you know, cars, you're not doing buildings and sky urban centers.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing like nature, and you don't see that a lot. And I think that's what makes you unique as well, like those good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone that I always say it too, especially on this podcast, is, you know, I struggle with it too, like posting stuff, you know, the numbers don't add up, or
Mm-hmm.
they're just not the way they're reflected what I want to see. But there's so many factors, you know. I don't want to be the guy where it's like, oh, it's all the algorithm, but that's one of the biggest factors. There's the
Yeah.
algorithm.
Yeah.
There's like I read something on an article where YouTube, 60% of the videos that are posted every day only get 500 views at most. Like that's a lot. That's a huge percentage. And I can only imagine how many videos are being posted. So
Mm-hmm.
to completely stop posting, you know what I mean? Like your videos or your, you know, opinion, your perspective on your craft or your well-being or just your brand, right? How you want people to see you is
Mm-hmm.
ludicrous, right? Like you should
Yeah.
be constantly putting stuff out there because you never know if that one video will be recognized by even more people. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of creatives too, I should say, Krishnil, is they struggle with the numbers.
Yeah.
It's not from a vanity perspective or like superficiality, like, oh, I need the numbers to make me feel good. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
the idea that we're storytellers, and when you tell a story, the more people that listen to it, the better, right? It's
The
like telling
better.
a joke,
Yeah.
right? Like if you
Yeah.
tell one guy for the rest of your life that laughs, it's like, oh, who cares? But if you
Mm.
get 20 people to laugh, like how sick is that, right?
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
you want to inspire them, you want to uplift them, you want to, you know, bring some sort of joy to their life. And, you know, I could just say that all I got to say, I guess, to any creative, including ourselves, that ever has those days is remind yourselves, like you said, of the days when you scroll down to the bottom of your page and you realize how much
Mm-hmm.
progress you've made, right? Because I've done that recently a few times,
Exactly.
and I've seen like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
progression in my own right. And, you know, I'm sure you've seen it in yourself, right? In just the course of a
Mm-hmm.
year. So you can
Yeah.
imagine in 5 years, if
Less
you
than a
just
year.
dedicate
Yeah.
less than a
Mm-hmm.
year, there you go. See? So if you just dedicate yourself even more, who's to say in 5 years, right? Where you'd be at.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that attitude. And I guess I wanted to know as well, like, how do you bring focus to your work as a creative? Like, what motivates you, even when you're distracted by the praise or the criticism? Like, what is it about this photography?
I think I have to constantly tell myself that I'm not doing it for anybody else. Yeah, I'm posting it on social media,
Right.
but that's not really who I'm doing it for. Obviously, you know, like you said, you want to have people, you know, see it because it's something you put your hard work into, and, you know,
Yeah.
there's a narrative to it. And you want the more people who see it, the better. But at the end of the day, if you're not posting for yourself, if you're not doing it for yourself, then you're not going to be happy with it. So I think happiness is my main focus. If I'm taking a shot, and that shot, like sometimes I take a shot, and after I take a shot, I look at my screen, I just go like, whoa, right? Like I did that, you know what I mean? If I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
constantly getting that feeling, then it's then I'm not doing good, in my opinion. Then I'm not really posting for me,
Yeah.
or, you know, photographing for myself. So that whoa factor really motivates me, because it's like, once you're in that zone, you take a picture, you're not thinking about posting it later on. You're not thinking about, you know, how many numbers it'll do. You're not thinking about the edits you're going to put on it. You're thinking about, you know, holy shit, I just did that. And you know, you're thinking about framing, you're thinking about, you know, your ISO, your shutter speed. How can I make the same shot but better? You're thinking in that moment.
Mm.
um, I'm not too. You're a film guy. I'm not too sure if you know the series. Have you ever heard of Spartacus: Blood and Sand?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I only watched the first season though.
Oh, dude, you
Yeah,
should you should finish it. It's really good.
I
But
know, I know, I heard.
the lead actor in that first season, Andy
Right.
Whitfield, who has since passed away.
I
Um,
just want to sorry interject. That's
yeah.
probably why I stopped just being
Oh
like the
yeah,
true film. I couldn't
yeah,
understand why they replaced him. And then when I heard he died, I'm like, oh, I can't get
uh-huh,
into it. But yeah, I should probably definitely give it another shot.
yeah.
But please continue. Yeah, sorry for that.
Um, anyway, so when he was battling, like that show literally made him a star. He was on cloud nine when that show came out. Like everybody
Of
was
course,
talking
of
about him.
course.
Everybody was talking about that
Hmm.
show. And then prior to them starting the second season, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So he had gotten cancer. And tattooed on his arm was the quote, "Be here now." And basically what that meant was, to live in the moment, to not worry about what you did yesterday, not worry about what the future may bring to you, but to just be happy in that single moment. And that's something he lived his final days by. He stuck to that rule. And that really spoke to me. Like ever since high school, that one quote has spoken to me. It's to just be in that moment. Before photography, you know how when you're going out with friends and you're having a good time, and a lot of people take pictures of themselves and stuff like
Of
that.
course.
That was never me. I
Yeah.
was I was one of the guys that would not take their phone out a lot when when you're in a social setting. I was just
I
there
respect
for
that so
that
much. Yeah, I
for
respect
that
that so
moment.
much, man.
Thank
Yeah.
you. But you do miss a lot. Like you sometimes you do want to capture the good moments, because
Yeah, of course.
6 years down the line, and there's a lot of things you won't remember, but when you have that photograph, it's like you remember it. So there's a pro and a con to it.
I think that's
But
why we clicked. I think that's why we clicked so much is like that
mm,
idea where you said you go out and you just never had your phone out. Like I was the kind of guy that never had my phone out, never was
mm,
texting. I hated people that, especially at work too, you would have a conversation like they'd look up from their phone, like, sorry, what? And it's like, who's
yeah, it's
texting you? Like,
terrible. Like why like
yeah, it's
why are
like,
you not? Yeah, I'm talking to you here,
and then you
right?
feel like, wow, yeah, exactly. But then you say to yourself, like, man, I gotta like make some more friends because, like,
Mm-hmm.
for them to be at that beck and call, because like you're thinking, who the hell's
Yeah.
texting all the time? That they
Mm-hmm.
have the time, like the energy to
Mm-hmm.
communicate. I don't know. I just there's these people that come to mind that when you would talk to them, they're always like, sorry, sorry, what was that? And I'm like, how are they always texting you? Like
Yeah,
what like they don't have their own lives. Like it's so confusing to
exactly.
me. And who wants to
Exactly.
look at their phone all the time? I
No,
should say I'm
no.
a bit hypocritical like now because I look at my phone more for social media because I'm constantly on it, like
Mm-hmm.
updating and posting, and it's just my community now. It's kind of do it through work as well,
Mm-hmm.
but building clients. But like that can actually I could see as reasonable. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
something for yourself. But these people that are just texting like, sorry, what was that? And ignoring
Yeah.
the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I can never understand that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you go out with friends and just even couples, I see it all the time. Like they're just in situations where it's like, hey, can you take a picture of me here? And it's like you would think like one or two photos, and they're like psychotic about it, like standing there
Mm-hmm.
for like 10,
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes to get the right shot. And I'm like, for
It's
who?
it's the
Like,
Instagram effect, man. It's for the
I
it's
know
for the
it's
likes.
crazy.
It's
I know,
it's
of
nuts.
course.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, man, the average likes what they get is what 50 to 100 at most,
Mm-hmm.
especially now with
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. It's like, again, even if you get 1,000, like there's always going to be someone getting 20 million, like a
Mm-hmm.
Kylie Jenner or something. So I just don't
Exactly,
understand, like,
man.
and like you were saying, right? It's the Instagram effect, but it's just funny to me. Um, I'm going off tangent here, but I wanted to bring up something where it was like, I was going through this situation, this reflection where I said to myself, I want to be known for my stories. I want to be, I want to have that fame, want to have that, that lifestyle. But yet what will I be famous for, because if I'm
Mm-hmm.
posting just to post like random TikTok videos or challenges, and
Mm-hmm.
because how they were saying go on TikTok, organic reach, people are blowing up and stuff. It's like, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are going viral, people are blowing
Mm-hmm.
up, but it's like, again, you take a step back and you're like, hold on, if I do a toilet paper challenge, right, and I blow up for that, Krishna, who doesn't know me, watches that. It's not
Like
going to know
what
that I
the
want to be the
hell?
next
Yeah.
Tarantino. Yeah, he's not going to know I'm going to want to be the next Tarantino. And no matter how many followers and likes I have, You know what I mean? Everyone who follows me is going to expect me to do viral videos and like funny shit. And I'll never be able to go to like serious storytelling.
Yeah.
So if anyone's going through that, like that crisis, that, you know, the crossroads of social media and what to post, and basically what you were saying before is that you got to a roadblock because you were saying you were posting things that weren't even aligned with who you are. I would say to them is, you know, just focus on, you know, good intentions, like on authenticity, like what speaks to you the most. I'm happy you brought up the artworks, you know, before, and about the Dragon Ball Z, because I posted, you know, artworks, and that's like a hobby of mine. That's just keep busy, but
and they're
that's
really nice. They're
Thank you. I
really
really
nice.
appreciate it. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's just like, something I'm proud of because it's like an extension of who I am. You know, it's like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, he's a filmmaker, but he's also does podcasts, he does vlogs, he does artworks. Like, it's about, you know, being, when you look at my page or my socials, you want to speak to all personality traits, all talents that you can do, right? And that's something that I think you're doing as well, or something I would encourage too. Like the fact that you mentioned artworks, I don't know how long it's been since you sketched, but if you had a passion for that, man, I would definitely encourage you, and I would love to see it more for probably myself, because I want to see those drawings. I think it's fascinating.
Oh man. So all the drawings that I did when I was younger, we're talking about like grade 5 to like grade 8. So we're talking like over 10 years ago.
Right.
Unfortunately, those have not, you know, stood the test of time. Like I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you where they are at this point.
Okay, no worries.
And that's mainly because, so like I wanted to speak a little bit about, like, you know, just art in a, you know, a brown immigrant household. It is like, I am first generation born here.
Nice.
So
same here, bro.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think you might be able to relate to this a little bit, but in an immigrant household, you know, it's all about, you know, education and what can make you money.
100%, bro.
At the end of the day, right? And it's like there are people who are very, very, very artistic, but all that you know, all that skill and all that talents can get lost. And that's exactly what kind of happened to me, because you're not really pushed in the direction to, you know, explore your artistic side. You're mainly
it's not encouraged in the household, right? Like, because you come from a family, I'm sure that, you know, is not professional artists or people in the field, right? They're not filmmakers coming home saying, yeah, you could do it, buddy. Or photographers. They're people that are hardworking, you know, nine to five. They labor, right? And they make the money and to give you a better life. And they're saying you owe, like, not you owe us, but out of respect.
Well, that's the life that they know. Yeah, that's the life that they know.
But out of respect, like for you to say, I want to do, let's say, photography tomorrow, right? Same experience like me when I said film. That's how my parents explained it to me. Is it's not that they want me to like do it to be miserable. It's they believe that, like you said, that's the only life they know. But it's also out of respect of like how much they work towards. Like my mother would actually tell me that. Like now she's more supportive, but I remember years before she was scared for the dream, the passion, like, you know, because nothing is guaranteed, even at my level. But she was saying that, you know, I put so much time, so much effort into making you have that, like, have an education, making sure that you are, you know, well-mannered and well-rounded, whatever. And now, now you want to do something that's not guaranteed. That's like all over the place. You know, I just want you to be safe. Right. And when she says that's why I say the notion of it's out of respect for you, those immigrant parents, that you pursue a path that's structured, that's safe, that, you know, will grant you that life, you know.
But it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right?
Because it
doesn't really guarantee that you're going to be happy.
But between you and me, man, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because between you and me, you know, as you get older, you realize too, there's a lot of people that work those jobs, whether they're my age, whether they're my parents' age, and you see them like they're miserable. You know, they're not like happy, or they're not doing what they want. They always joke around about winning the lottery. Like for me, it's like, if you're happy with your life, if you're living a structured life that you intended, why do you always like race to win, like play the lottery? Why do you always joke around about, oh, that car would be so nice to have? It's like, I thought your happiness was, you know, your life right now. But I think it's that idea of human beings always, you know, wanting more, and you know, basically not having that same sacrifice. Is that at the end of the day, we're fortunate enough to be living our generation where we're be able to pursue these passions. We have the technology, the social media, as
Mm-hmm.
sophisticated that it is, that we can push out our content. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, man, it's like, I think it's really important that, like I said in the beginning, you're in our 20s and you just kind of go for it and
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
where you end up.
Because along the way, you're going to find yourself, right? Nothing is
Yeah.
guaranteed, but the only thing that is guaranteed is growth,
Yeah,
right?
really. Yeah, that's so true,
That's the
man.
only thing.
And you're
Um,
gonna make mistakes, man. Like that's the thing
mhm,
too. I realize is, as much as you don't want to, I think the biggest thing for me is, when I fear making mistakes is because I don't want to go backwards, or I don't want to like prevent myself, because I feel like everything is like a timeline.
mhm,
Because you're gonna
mhm.
have eventually people saying like, "Hey, you're pushing 30. Like, what are you doing now?" Right? But
Yeah.
I think the reality is that you have, as long as you trust with yourself and you have good, like I always
Mhm.
say, good intentions, authenticity, even if those mistakes were to happen, those failures, it'll feel harder in the moment, but down the road, you'll look back and say, they needed to happen so I can learn from this. Right. And we're constantly failing, we're
Exactly.
constantly
Yeah.
learning like how to improve.
Mhm. I always say, like,
Yeah.
if you're not failing, you're not growing. Failure isn't something that you should look back and regret. It's just something you should look back and say, I learned from that mistake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's constant. But as far as just being in your 20s, like, and you mentioned how timeline puts a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? Like, you're pushing 30 and you still have so much to do, and there's also that added pressure of what your parents are wanting you to do as well. I try not to look at that. I've tried to kind of zone out of that. Like, I'm turning 25 this July, so it's more in the sense, I'm not looking at my age as like a timeline, like what I need to be doing by 30. I'm just literally going with the motion, man. Because
Yeah.
if I was so stressed about you know my age and what I needed
Yeah.
to be doing, I wouldn't be in
Can
retail
relate.
anymore. You know what I mean? I would be doing something else, but I'm here because it allows me to kind of branch out and kind of find
It's
what
the
I really
only, yeah, the one upside of retail, I should say, or just anyone in the restaurant
hmm
business, is it allows you that flexibility that no other job,
exactly.
because anyone that knows, I've worked those jobs, right? Like marketing
hmm
coordinator, publicity
hmm
promotions, like full time. And there's a reason why they say it's not a job, it's a career, because it takes over your life. Like you
It's
have to be
hmm
in it.
hmm
And when you show up, like your mind has to be there, or else you'll get fired. Because when my mind would drift, people would pick it out. And
hmm
if they're picking it out at retail, right, they're picking it out at those companies. So
hmm
I've
hmm
had my own experience for sure, and that's why I'm such a big believer in, if you really want this passion, you have to just go all in and see what
Yeah.
happens. Like give yourself
hmm
that time, give yourself that
hmm
stretch, because yeah, it's possible for sure. You can do both careers. With a weekend, for example, I heard
hmm
he worked at an insurance company and he did music on the side.
hmm
But I don't know, it just depends on your craft. Depends what you're
hmm
trying to do, right?
hmm
I believe you have to have a good footing in. You have to have a good foundation,
hmm
and you have to have realize like it's going to take a lot of dedication to
Yeah.
do both, right? Because at the end of the day, right, the one feeds you and one doesn't. And I think that's what a lot of creatives are concerned about. At least for
hmm
me, is you're in a position where it's like, naturally you're going to be more passionate eventually, not passionate, but more invested, more focused in the one
hmm
that feeds you, the one that pays you, than the one that's like you said, you're getting 5 likes, you're getting 10 likes, you're getting 100 likes.
hmm
Eventually, right? It's just human nature. You're going to eventually break up, like say, okay, what am I doing this for? Right.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's why like with a lot of like heroes or people like mentors in the business,
hmm
like Tarantino, Scorsese, they always go like, "There's no backup plan when you're in this. Like it's all in." And I
hmm
understand why they're saying that. Like easier said than done. You don't know. Everyone
Yeah.
has a different path, right?
hmm
People have bills to pay at the end of the day. But oh my God, when they said that, I was like, I feel that. Like I know what that
hmm
meant.
hmm
It's like if you want this dream, you gotta have no backup plan, because if you do, you're always gonna be
That
leaning
safety
towards
net.
that
Yeah.
safety net, right? That's what
Yeah.
it is.
hmm
Like I said, I told you, I don't know if I think before the podcast, I'll mention it again to the viewers, is I gave myself like that. It just so happened to be the pandemic. That was never the intention. But January
hmm
2020, I was like, I left my last job. There's sort of a situation. I went to California. I came back, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself this year and see where I end up with this
hmm hmm
videography film. And that's why I created 94 Productions, my startup
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit 3 months later. And I made some clients, but I always like wonder if the pandemic never hit, like how many, instead of one client, would I have 5, or instead of one project, would I have 10? But it's all speculation. I think the big thing for me is, giving yourself that time, giving yourself that much needed space. And that's what allowed me to create the content that I was able to do. And that's, how we were able to connect even more, and create, like, this podcast would have never happened if I didn't give myself that time to figure out what I wanted to do. Right. Because it just puts everything in perspective and allows you to focus.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when I kind of took notice of you as well. It was January of last year when you started posting those shots from, when you were in the States and stuff like that. Because like I felt like you were kind of, you kind of disappeared off of social media for a bit, I feel like.
I did, yeah. Oh, and thanks for noticing, because because what it is that, this is what I mean by you never know who's watching. Is clearly Krishnil was, a fan or a supporter, a friend. And he was like, hey, I haven't seen Daniel in a while. But yeah, please continue what you were saying. Sorry.
Yeah, and then and I only noticed it because when you started posting stuff again, and I'm like, oh snap, he's in the States doing this, and that. You know what I mean? That's when I noticed, like, where has this guy been? I feel like this guy fell off the face of the earth.
It's true,
right? Because the last time I saw you, I think you had just quit where we were working, and I think I saw you around school. And then you said something
that's right.
We should hang out or something like that.
Right.
And then it just never happened. You, like, I don't know, I guess that, and that's life though, right? I mean, like you get pulled in all these different directions, and then
I was going through a lot, man. Like, my family knows. I won't go into too much detail, but around the time because I now remember, around the time I met with you, I was going through a lot of personal stuff. So I was like, not even hanging out with anyone really. I was just going to work, trying to keep the job that I had at the time, and figure out this passion of mine. And I think all the events this is what I mean by, like, I look back, and when I left my last job, I was devastated, because I was like, it was decent money. It was a commission based as well, and I was killing it with sales. But obviously I wasn't happy. I was just doing it because it's like something to do. And it was also I was trying to use it to get me into corporate. But it's just like, they surprised me one day, like, we're going to transfer you to another location. It's going to be less hours, less money, this, that. And I'm like, what?
So what's the
point? And I'm like, but I'm like your star player. And not to blow smoke up my own ass, but it was the reality. Like, the regional manager would even tell me, like, you're one of our lead sales, you and this other guy. So I was just devastated, and I was confused. But at the same time, I gave myself they're like, yeah, you can think about it. And I'm like, okay. So I gave myself an hour. I thought about it, and I said, and this is where it was like a movie moment, my Hollywood moment, where I said, what do I want to, what does Daniel want to do? And I kind of like just sucked it up, and I said, I have to make this decision. And that's when I went to California. And then that's when you saw the posting and stuff. It's kind of like, I went to California because it was, I wanted to remind myself, like, of my passion. I wanted to remind myself of why I started this dream, and I get kind of choked up just thinking about it, because it was just something, like, I was in like one of the darkest places of my life at that time. Just what was going on in my life, and I felt defeated. And when I was in California, just everything disappeared. Like, everyone was creative there. Everyone was in film. There was no one saying, like, I'm a CA. Like, what are you doing with your life? It was just a different world, man. West Coast, like, true, the entertainment capital. And I just loved it. Like, again, it's superficial to say, like, oh yeah, you loved it, of course, but try living there. But for me, it was like, I always enjoyed, just the geography, just the landscape, the people, the culture, the lifestyle. I've always been fascinated. Exactly. I've always been fascinated since I was a kid. And again, people might be living with like 8 people, and they might be, struggling to make ends meet, paycheck to paycheck, but there's just a different vibe. Like, people are just smiling all the time. The girls, like, everyone's so laid back and outgoing. And, they're just, everyone's free, open to talk to you. Like, again, I love Toronto, but I know for a fact, like, just comparing the two cities, like, people are just so open to have a conversation with you, girl and guy, like, I was just sitting at a bar and, like, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? Like, what do you do for a living? Like, they're just, like, invested. And I think that's because it goes back to that networking ability, and it's the entertainment capital for a reason. Like, everyone's trying to make it. and they got to be out there, like Toronto, it's like, everyone's very creative. It has a separate world for sure, subculture. But at the end of the day, it's predominantly like, business oriented. It's services, right? And people, do their path. They're trying to make the best that they can. Very competitive.
Kind of stick to it, right?
It's not competitive from an arts perspective. It's competitive from a business, right? You know people, right? That it's like, I went to Schulich, went to Waterloo, went to Queens, but over there it's the opposite. It's I was on this set, I was on that film, I know that director, I'm at this guy's party. It's a very different lifestyle. And
you know what I think it is. Sorry to cut you off. You know what I think?
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Go ahead.
Especially over there. I think compared to how you were feeling here in Toronto and over there, is probably because over there you were surrounded by people who had a similar vision to you. So you were motivated to keep pushing yourself further and pushing yourself
100%. 100%.
You know what I mean? And it's the community that you were surrounded with helped you in that regard.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, man. It's to put it into perspective, when I was there, when I would show people my Instagram page, or I would show people like, some footage that I've taken because I made some short films when I was there. They were immediately like impressed. They were like, wow, like, and I got some followers because of that. Because they were doing like their own business, like styling, like shoes and things like that. And what I'm saying is that, like, again, I'm not saying because, Toronto didn't like my stuff, that means like everyone here is, again, everyone has an opinion, but I'm just saying is that when you show people, your Instagram page here, right? Some like on the street, or when you're just talking to them, it's like, oh, okay, cool. But in LA or that area, they kind of have a different respect for it because they understand that they have a creative eye. Everyone's like, trying to pursue the same passion. Right. So I think Toronto, like, I love the city, and I'm so happy I created a community. I found a community, I should say, of like film people that respect the craft. But I was struggling for a while because at the end of the day, it's not entirely a film capital. It's there's others, right? There's other interests. There's other things that people are into. Like I said, it's very service driven. It's very business oriented. And that's why when I went to California, it was a reminder. That's why I say it was a personal/professional trip, business trip, because I went there for that intention, like to rediscover my roots, rediscover, what I want to do. And, I still intend to. I know with the pandemic, it's kind of crazy, but I still intend to, live there one day and, expand my brand. That was
my next question, actually.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to ask me that? Yeah.
Going back there.
Yeah, I do.
Right. That's where I feel like your growth.
I think the next time, obviously when things settle, but it would also be, my biggest thing is I enjoyed that trip, but there was also a part of me that it's like, okay, but when I come back, I want to be even better. I want to have something else to show for. Because when I was talking to the locals, when I was talking to people in the industry, I showed them like 2 short films, and they weren't even the best, my best work. They were shot on like my Canon T5i, which was, just basic, like when I was starting out. And, now that I've created, like I've recently directed my first short film, and, I have other projects coming along, and
that one's even just the film festival, right?
Yeah. So there's one called Beautiful. It's a soccer one. Have you seen it?
I have not. I haven't seen any of your short films yet.
No worries, man. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, no, please.
Because that actually has got into some festivals, and it won an award at a film festival in LA, a small one.
Dude, that is
amazing. Yeah, I'm really thank you. I'm really proud of it because this is what I mean by like when I made that promise, where it's like when I come back, I want to have at least something to show for, and it's just going on a world tour. I got people like, hey, do you want to be in this festival and that? So I'm really proud of that film. And then the other one that I'm speaking of, it's in my bio. It's called Cracked.
I think that's the one that I was looking at earlier.
Yeah. Nice. That one like explores mental health. Explores, a man trying to keep his family together. It was a very kind of dark, melancholy film, but it has it's supposed to have like an endearing message at the end. And that was with my friends Kosa Caraway and Danny Mariathis. They're writers on it. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, we saw your kind of like with you, right? You see my style, you see my shots. And they were so inspired. They took it to another level where they said, would you like to be part of this? Would you like to direct this film? And I was so honored. I'm like, this is, a way for me to get into the industry, right? And to showcase my work. So I'm really excited for you to watch that. And I'll definitely share with you the link of Beautiful. It's only about a minute and a half.
Okay.
But it's been
Yeah.
getting a lot of attention. So I'm
That's
grateful for
good.
that. I'm so
That's
grateful,
really
man.
good.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, Cracked was the one that got into the Seoul Film Festival. Is that the one?
No, no, that's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Crack,
Oh, okay.
nothing's disclosed yet because it's still in festival circulation. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
we're not going to hear back for probably a couple of months. But Beautiful is the one that got into Seoul. The LA one I was telling you about, New York. I don't know if you saw
Hmm.
me. I posted about New York.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, it's with Robert DeMario. He's
Uh-huh.
a friend, my friend's younger brother, but he's a friend of mine
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
And he's so excited as well. Like, because I told him, I said, once it's done, I'm gonna probably submit it to some festivals. And he's like, okay.
Hmm.
And I don't think we were expecting like the the scope. Like I was expecting like a couple of festivals in Toronto if I was lucky, but so far
Hmm.
it hasn't even been anyone in Toronto. It's just been people like outside of the other countries. So it helps with that
That's
universal,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
universal reach, right? Like South Korea, like I was blown away.
Uh-huh.
Like what? I
Uh-huh.
didn't even know there was a festival
Yeah, yeah, me
that
too. I'm like,
that
yeah.
wanted this minute film, you know what I mean? The short film
Hmm.
festival, right?
Hmm.
So I'm really proud of that. And
That's good.
thanks for supporting always.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that.
And I just wanted to say, like,
Yeah.
when you start posting, like your short films that have gone into film festivals and they have that little accolades
The
on
laurel.
them,
Yeah. The laurels.
yeah,
Yeah.
that actually made me feel really, really proud of you. Like,
Oh,
like
thank you.
good stuff, man, good stuff.
Thank
Because
you. Yeah.
I know, because I have another friend who's trying to do the same thing, and it's a tough industry
It's very tough,
to
man.
crack into. Yeah, it's a very tough industry, and so for your films, do you take inspiration from any? I know you're a huge fan of Tarantino. I know that
Hey,
much.
did I tell you?
Um,
Is it because I told you, or is it my social
yeah,
media?
you've
Because I
told
talk
me.
about it all the
I
time.
think
Yeah, I
we
probably told you.
talked
Yeah.
about it a couple of times because I
Yeah.
remember when we were working together, The Hateful Eight had just come out, and I think we were talking about it a little bit. Like the
Ah, yeah, that's
conversation was a
right.
little
I
bit
was probably like
hazy.
voicing it to everybody, like, oh,
Yeah,
that's right,
yeah,
2015.
yeah,
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 yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
was like,
2015, 2016, I
yeah,
think. You
yeah,
told
yeah,
me
yeah,
that
yeah.
you're a huge fan of Tarantino. I'm like, oh, have you
Yep,
seen The Hateful Eight?
yep, yep,
And
yep.
yeah, 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 no, that's a great movie. But I will say, out of all of Tarantino's films, I think for me, Inglorious Bastards probably takes the cake. I love
Glorious
that
Bastards,
movie.
yeah, that's a
I
favorite.
love that movie.
Amongst a lot of people that I talk to,
Yeah.
whenever I mention
Mhm.
Tarantino, they're like, bro, just that first 20 minutes is a movie in itself. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. That's a great short film.
My favorite scene, actually, yeah, and I was actually speaking, I don't know if you remember Sam from work,
I do, yeah, Stratzeri, bro.
but yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but I was speaking to him yesterday and he was saying the same thing. He's like, the best scene in that movie is that, opening shot of him
everybody
going
remembers
to the
it. The
house.
iconic scene,
Everybody,
bro. Yeah.
because it really sets the tone for the entire movie. You know what I mean? You're expecting, like, from the trailers, like this, Brad Pitt's kind of like slapstick comedy thrown in there a little bit. But when that
Yeah,
beginning scene
it
hits, you're like,
establishes the tone. Yeah.
oh shit, it's that type of movie.
It
And he's like, you kind
establishes
of
that,
knew because they had to do it. Yeah,
yeah, it
the tone.
establishes that it's
Yeah,
unpredictable. Like anything can happen, and don't be so sure. Like he can be
exactly.
duped. And it also showed the
Hmm.
cunningness of the Nazis, right? Like
Yes.
that they're not cartoon characters. That they can be
Hmm.
that they're human beings and they're extremely smart, especially the
Exactly.
ones that were in charge
Uh-huh.
with those awful roles.
Diabolical. Diabolical.
Diabolical, exactly the word.
Come on,
Evil,
they
right?
were. Yeah,
Just
they were evil. Yeah.
they were evil, but you can't deny that they were also intelligent in what they were doing. Like they knew
Hmm.
how to weed things out of people, and they're like
Hmm.
that's why I say cunning, manipulative,
Hmm.
conniving, and
Yeah.
credit to Christoph Waltz, like he killed that
Oh,
performance, and that's
amazing. That was the first movie I saw him with.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's his
ever
first,
since
I think,
then.
American movie
Yeah.
too, because he was like a
Oh,
German TV actor.
okay,
And
interesting.
Tarantino discovered him. And the story with
Uh-huh.
that, he actually said he was going to shelve the project if he didn't find his actor for Hans Landa, because he's the kind of guy where he doesn't hire whoever's hot in Hollywood. It's
Hmm.
whoever
Hmm.
fits the role.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he said, if I didn't find Christoph Waltz, I would have shelved it because he needed
Uh-huh.
someone that was a good actor, obviously, but
Hmm.
multilingual as well, and it could sell it.
Hmm.
Not learning like have a dialogue coach. Like this guy in real life
Exactly.
is actually multilingual.
Hmm.
So just a beautiful film, yeah, all around. My
Yeah.
my favorite I would have to mention is Django and Chain, only
Django and
because
Chain. Yeah.
uh, I saw it in theaters. It was the first Tarantino movie I thought I saw in theaters,
Hmm.
and I just love the whole style, like with the music, and it's just like the Western. It's very action packed, and
Hmm.
there's just a lot to absorb, like the dialogue is especially. So I think it has
Hmm.
like a soft spot for me. Like I love the storyline, like the grittiness.
Yeah.
Like I like
Uh-huh.
when he's like Calvin Candy. based in slavery, right? So Calvin Candy tells Django, he's like, you know, you don't seem green around the gills for you know, someone who's a slave owner or someone who's into that, you know, fighting, right? And he goes, yeah, I'm just a little bit more, I'm just a little more, oh no, I'm messing up the whole line. He goes, sorry, he says, your friend seems a little green around the gills for someone who's a slave owner, right? And he's referring to Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
And Django says, I'm just a little more used to Americans than he is, right? And then like there's lines like that I just love. Like they just like, damn, like that was badass. And it's just like a richness to it.
Yeah.
And you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, he always plays like the hero or at least the lead. And the fact that he was playing this diabolical, maniacal, just
really
hatred filled. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But he played it with such conviction. And I have to give him credit for that. Even though he was like just like an awful character. Even Tarantino stated it's his worst character. Like he hates him. He's the most hated character he wrote of all time. I still can't, like, it's fascinating to watch because again, this is DiCaprio selling you that he's a slave owner and he hates black people, and he doesn't obviously in real life.
And he literally hit every single, you know, check.
Yeah, like he sold it. He had the intimidating performance. He had like the flamboyant look. And yeah, like you know, because he always yells in his movies, and when he yelled in this movie, like you felt it. I really love the movie altogether, like the sound, the editing, the style, the music. So that's probably one. And then Pulp Fiction, I would say, is probably like next to Django Unchained. That's why I started 94 Productions. It's called 94. It's the year I was born, and 94 is the year Pulp Fiction was released. And Tarantino, that was his that was his breakout year. That was the year like he became Tarantino. Like everyone like around the world knew him because Reservoir Dogs was like local. It was like the United States.
I actually liked that movie. That movie was not a lot of people know that he did Reservoir Dogs. I feel like because like when I mentioned Tarantino, like you know, the go-to is Inglourious Bastards, Django, or Kill Bill.
Exactly.
But Reservoir Dogs, especially that ending, man. That ending, the ending for Reservoir Dogs and the ending for The Departed. I don't know if you've seen The Departed with Mark Wahlberg. Matt
We won't
Damon.
spoil it, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we won't spoil it, but intense, and it catches you by surprise. It feels like, you know, the rug was pulled underneath you. Like you don't see it coming. You don't see it coming. Yeah. It's amazing.
Like, and then when you see that scene, for example, in The Departed, it's like you don't see it coming, but when you look back, it's like it better have happened. You know what I mean?
Because how else would they do anything, right?
Yeah. It's more like, you know, all the motives of the characters and how like everyone went through, and it's just justice, right? At the end of the day. But yeah, those two, Pulp Fiction and Django Unchained, and yeah, man, Tarantino, like I'm so happy you respect his craft and you also share the same interests, and you know, we can even have more conversations about film down the road, like on podcasts. I'm always, you know, I always love to see and hear people's journeys and their experiences, their challenges, and so exciting to see, you know, what more you can offer, you know, because I've seen your craft so far, and you know, the photos you've been putting out, and the fact that you've been consistent. I think that's a big thing, you know, and you have the courage to just put it out. So
and it's hard to do that. Yeah, the consistency is hard. Like a lot of people
very hard.
That's it, but it's a level of anxiety. It's a level of you know, anticipation that, you know, I don't know if this is going to be going good, or you know, I don't know if anybody's going to like this one. There was this one time, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So usually when I do a photo, I will make a couple different edits, but mainly because I'm not always satisfied with my final edit. But I remember doing an edit, posted it, and the second edit I did, so it's a shot of a building, and inside the building the lights are on. The lights are yellow. Not all the lights are on, so there's like, it's kind of like a T, and then, you know, kind of branches out.
Yeah, of course.
And then there's a street light. So I posted the original edit that I did, which is just with the normal yellow lights, but then I played around with it, and I kind of made like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of
That's
photograph
amazing.
where all the lights are red inside, so it kind of gives like a horror aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I posted on my story, you know, like, which one do you like better? Do you like, you know, the one that I posted, or do you like the one that's the Nightmare on Elm Street one? And majority of the people voted for the Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm just sitting there like, man,
I think I voted
When
for
was,
that too.
yeah, 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 you
I
did.
did,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Okay,
sure.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was looking at it, I'm like, man, I should have posted the other one. I mean, like the first one was doing okay numbers, I would
Yeah.
say. Uh, and then I'm like, but everybody likes the, Nightmare on Elm Street one much better. But,
Yeah.
some people told me, oh, just delete it and repost it, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, but that's not true to myself.
Yeah.
I
It's
made the
not.
decision to post this one. I'm keeping that one. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter if I can post it again and whatnot. But
Yeah,
I'm
don't
happy with it.
backtrack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
don't
Yeah,
backtrack and
yeah.
like, be confident in what you're putting out. And at the end of the day, man, like I said, as long as you're authentic to your brand, your image, your identity, who you are as a person, you can't go wrong, right? Like as
Exactly.
long as you're not hurting anyone or insulting
Mhm.
them, like just put out your stuff. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me about, I guess that what could get in the way of consistency is, why am I doing this? Like, does
Mhm.
anyone really care?
Yeah.
But this conversation alone is evidence that I got to keep going. I got to keep putting stuff out because
Mhm.
you telling me like, oh, where did this guy go? He disappeared. Like, I haven't seen
Mhm.
much. It just shows that, you don't have to like all my pictures to tell me like I'm a fan of you. You could
Yeah.
just view them. How many people
Mhm.
like will contact me and say like, wow, this really inspired me. And I'll be like, and I look back and I'm like, wow, this guy didn't like it or comment it, but he told me he
Mhm.
inspired. And it's like, we become so attached to these likes and these comments that we
Mhm.
forget that human beings are still human beings just because they
Mhm.
didn't actually do the
Like
action.
it. Yeah. The
Yeah.
action.
You know what I mean? That stupid action that only the
Mhm.
algorithm would understand,
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're not inspired by it. They're not affected by it. They didn't touch their heart.
Very
So
true. Yeah.
I think it's very important that we just ignore that. Obviously use it
Uh-huh.
as markers like growth, like just to see like, reception wise.
Mhm.
But in terms of like, especially when you're just starting out and you just want to put stuff out there and overcome that obstacle of, will they like it? Will they not? It's just put it out there. I'm telling you,
Mhm.
give yourself
Yeah.
6 months, 6 months
Mhm.
consistently, and tell me in 6 months if you're at the same spot. If you are, then pivot. If you're
Yeah.
not, keep going, and then,
To put into perspective, sorry, to
yeah,
put into perspective,
for
when I
sure.
started my Instagram page, July 27th, it was a couple days before my birthday. Um, I got about like 120, 150 followers on that first, month that I had
Oh,
it.
wow.
So I was like, holy
Why is that?
shit.
Because of a photo you posted or just because you started
Well,
the account?
I started the account. I followed a bunch of people that for my personal page. I followed you. I followed,
Yeah, yeah.
all my
Followed
friends and
followed
stuff like that.
immediately back, bro. I was so
Yeah, yeah,
excited for
yeah.
you. Yeah.
And thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, within the first month, it was like 150 followers. But before I even created the account, I took time because I bought my camera end of June. And then I took a month. I took a month to just take pictures.
Okay.
Without posting them. So on July 27th, I posted two pictures. And they got really, really good
Nice.
reception from friends, from total strangers as well. And a lot of photography pages started following me right off the bat.
It's amazing.
And then, and then it kept growing. I was getting like 200 followers every single month or close to it. The more I
That's
posted.
amazing. Yeah.
By December, by beginning of December, it felt like the follower count has kind of like dwindled. Like
It's an algorithm
usually,
thing,
yeah,
I believe.
yeah. I literally would go to sleep and I would wake up to like 10 followers. That's how crazy it was
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
every single day
I
or
can
close to that.
I when I first got Instagram, man, I
Yeah.
wouldn't even post things that you're posting. Like I would post
Mhm.
like stupid shit, like my face with like the Instagram filter, and I wasn't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
smiling.
yeah. I remember the filters. I
You know what I
remember
mean?
the
Or just
filters. Yeah.
like, a picture of a tree, but it wasn't
Yeah.
with our professional cameras. It was an iPhone
Hmm.
6. And
Hmm.
like you said, 11 followers off the bat. It's like,
Hmm.
what?
Yeah.
But it's an
Because
algorithm thing for sure.
people do, like, everybody has their own taste. You know what I mean? And yeah, but by December, end of December, I hit 1,000 followers.
Yeah, I saw that. And
I started in July, and then in December
that's
I
what I
hit.
wanted to mention, man. I
Yeah.
saw that and I was like, good for you,
Yeah.
man. Like
Hmm.
you reached 1,000 followers. And
Yeah.
because again, I follow your journey, and I'm like, I
Hmm.
remember when people were following you back, you had like about a couple hundred, 300.
Hmm. Hmm.
And obviously I didn't follow it like every day, but sometimes I would be like, oh, now he's at 700. That's cool. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, it was probably like a month or two ago where I was like, I wonder where he's at.
Hmm.
And then it was like 1,200, and I'm like, wow, like good for him. Like, and
Yeah.
and you could tell like you've just been posting and you've just been getting
Posting.
better
Yeah.
at your craft, right? So I really appreciate having you on, man.
Thank you
It's
so
been a
much.
pleasure, like
Yeah.
always, talking to you, man. It's a lot of fun. I plan to do more of these, talking about our journeys and, just discussing, our experiences and our challenges, like I said,
Hmm.
right? And we can learn from each other, and the audience can definitely be inspired and learn from us as well.
Hmm.
So on that note, is there anything else you have to say to the audience? Anything you want to say?
Just whatever hurdles come your way, just keep creating. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's don't lose that creativity, because I know better than anyone else that just growing up and just going through the motions of life, you can lose that creativity along
yeah,
the way. And especially with social media, don't let that deter you, because it's kind of designed to kill your creativity sometimes. Like, don't worry too much about the likes, the comments, the saves, nothing like that. Like, if you feel happy and content with your content, keep posting it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't lose your creativity, because it's not
Hmm.
only a disservice to yourself, but it's a disservice to us, because we don't even know, what you're putting out, and
Yeah.
how beautiful you or talented your work can be.
Hmm.
So remember that
Exactly.
the next time
Yeah.
you're preventing yourself from posting. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So
All
thank you
right.
so much again, Krishnil. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
No problem, man.
Take
Thanks for
care.
having
Later,
me.
guys.